Training with the bodybuilding and mobile functionality hammer is based on 5 essential movements. In this video, we're going to talk about one.
How's it going, everybody? Movement number 5, the one you've been waiting for. We're going to talk about slams, okay? More specifically, we're going to talk about how do you build yourself into slamming your hammer safely and effectively, okay? This is one of those movements where I thought about waiting in a little bit longer in the training to introduce it, but I know you guys got your hammer specifically so you can slam it on the ground, so we're going to start it now. The most important thing about incorporating slams is this. If you're used to doing sledgehammer and tire or anything like that, you're used to a piece of equipment that deadens force so that you really have to work hard to pick the implement back up. That's what the tire does for the sledgehammer. It's not how this piece of equipment is gonna work. It's made of rubber. All the inertia is gonna be coming back at you. So prepare yourself for, as you're learning, the learning curve goes, you might have to dodge a couple of these. But that's why I'm specifically telling you to progress the movements the way that we're going to avoid undue stress on your tendons and ligaments in your arms and then hitting yourself in the face. When in doubt, don't hit yourself in the face, okay? For this one, I have a guest. If you've seen American Ninja Warrior in the last couple seasons, you've probably seen her. This is Jess Clayton. Jess, come here. Yay, Jess. All right, so Jess is gonna step in. We're gonna talk a little bit about this position. Come in sideways. Yep. Now, from here, I'm gonna have her back up just a little bit. Okay, she's going to hinge at the hips and shoot her butt back so she can grab her hammer. Okay. So we can see from this angle that she's actually a little bit too far back. If I pull this in, that's just about right. And you notice the head is sitting flat on the ground. So if she adds a second hand, we sit her down just a little bit. This is the position that she's going to try and land in every single rep. So the first iteration of this in your programming is you're gonna start in this position, you're gonna stand up, give the hammer a little swing, don't move yet, give the hammer a little swing, come back up, bring it forward, and try and just drop your butt and land right back in this position. So just let's see 5 of them. Okay, she swings, brings it up, not trying to put a lot of inertia into the ground, not trying to put a lot of force. We're trying to get a nice crisp snap off of the hammer hitting the ground, okay? All right, give it a swing, drive your hips forward so you stand up tall and sit, good. That one looks pretty good. Now get one more and excellent. And you hear that sound will really start to pop off as the slam goes well, okay? Again, we're not trying to crush what's underneath you. What we're trying to do is land in a good position. And you need to think about getting a couple of 100 reps of landing in a good position over and over again before we start thinking about adding some extra force. So Jess, let's give a 3/4 turn. That's the first iteration. We'll talk about the second iteration. The second iteration of this is we're not going to come to a full stop, but we are going to have a break of a swing in between each slam. So Jess is gonna come back. She's gonna start in a good position. Okay, she's gonna stand up, get some inertia going. She stands, she goes, here, up, she drops, slam, and then right back into the swing, up, slam, right back into the swing, up, slam. 2 more. Good, go ahead and relax. You notice that in there, while in the first set of swings when we were doing the stop each time, by the end of it, she was consistently getting a nice snap on the head contact. Adding the change of swing, slam means the consistency is gonna be off. So we don't wanna progress forward until you're, 9 times out of 10, you've got a really good piece of ground contact and a really nice snapping sound coming out of that hit. The harder the surface that you work on, the louder that sound is going to be. Beware using it on concrete. If you're working on soft ground, like you're working on grass, you're working on sand, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to get a good bounce out of this just because the surface you're on is going to deaden that so much. The goal is consistently landing the head flat on the ground. And you'll notice if you hit it and it bounces off to one side, you're consistently not hitting flat. If it bounces off to the other side, you're consistently not hitting flat. The goal is to get it hitting flat. So those are the two variations, and then we're gonna bring in another person to help us talk about full slams. My wife just made a face because I talked about a second person, but it's not a second person, it's actually me. She's behind the camera, she was like, what are you talking about? Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, so let's do full slams. Full slams, what we're doing is we're taking out the swing. So consistently hitting the hammer rep after rep. Couple things that you should be feeling, really. I'm looking to feel much like a swing. I want to feel my hamstrings tighten up when I'm down in the bottom, and then I'm driving as hard as I can, squeezing my quads, squeezing my hips, bringing the hammer back down into that starting position. The big difference between this movement and what we've done earlier is you're gonna have to catch the momentum that you generate by driving the hammer into the ground, and then using it, getting your elbows under the hammer, using it to drive it back up into a position where you're either going straight over your head, or an even more complicated motion would be a more complicated motion will be bringing it back behind your head and then adding some abdominal contraction to drive this down into the ground. Another thing I want to mention is we can end up in one of two safe spinal positions here. We can have a slightly hollow position in landing, which means your abs are contracting a little bit more to generate a little bit more force at ground contact. Or we can focus more on dropping the elbows close to your sides, and you're getting that same momentum generation with your lats by squeezing down here. I'm gonna show you both of them. With one, I'm gonna be slightly more leaned over position. In the other, my arms are gonna be closer to my sides. My head is gonna be a little bit higher. Blah, 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 blah. All right, let's slam hammers. So, again, I recommend starting from the position that you're going to want to end up in when the hammer hits the ground. It's always a good idea to remind yourself of what you're trying to do. Okay, from here, I've got that tension in my hamstrings. I'm gonna grab with two hands. I'll start with one swing just to get the hammer into place, and then we'll go straight into this, into the consistent slams. This first one, I'm gonna be contracting more with my abs, and I'm gonna let the hammer get up above my head before I bring it back down. Okay, yahoo! So you see there, driving the momentum into the ground, and then as the inertia comes up, I'm catching that momentum, using it to get myself back into a good position. I was contracting my abs a little bit right at the moment of ground contact to get a little bit more force. That's slam variation number one. Full slam variation number one. Slam variation number two, I'm gonna use my lats to drive down, okay? So my chest is gonna be a little bit taller at the moment of impact, and I'm gonna take it all the way behind my body so that it's gonna go through the longest range of motion possible, where I'm catching here in a good position, staying really tight through the quads, through the hips, through the hamstrings, abs are on nice and tight, and then keeping getting the abdominal contraction at the top and closing with the lats. There you go, easy peas. You saw there on the first rep, my body weight drifted over my toes, which is why I had to take that step forward. If your body weight is over your toes, over the ball of your foot, you're gonna feel this inclination to need to step forward. Pay attention to that. Try and rock yourself back into your heels. You'll feel much more stable, and you'll feel like you can generate a lot of power. When you're on the balls of your feet, it kind of feels like, the hammer's in control. Not the way this is supposed to feel. You're in control of the piece of equipment, not the other way around. That is the slam. Remember, I do not care how many bad reps you can do. You shouldn't either.